There was proof the world is out to get me. There was proof that there are people taking advantage. And if I'm not careful, I'm just going to be completely shafted. But I was insistent on not focusing on that. I was adamant. The world is not out to get me. I live in a friendly universe. Everything is happening for me. And it turned into a major opportunity.
You're listening to the Good for Business podcast, where we feature interviews, tips, and tricks from owners, operators, and innovators throughout Mississippi and around the world. And now, your host, Colin Krieger. All right, everyone, welcome to the show. My guest today is one of my best friends, my coach and mentor, Yaakov Weinstein. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Colin. Really happy to be here. So my name is Yaakov Weinstein. I live in Starkville, originally from New Jersey, born in New York. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I'm a life coach. I'm a firefighter. I'm a wilderness survival instructor.
I think the survival instructor goes hand in hand with life coach. So for the last 2 years, Yaakov has been coaching me through stressful situations and for non-stressful situations, working on meditations and all kind of other stuff. So we'll try to be limited on how much we go deep into my therapeutic needs today. But can we first start, which I've always asked you before, can we go back to your origin story of little bitty Yaakov walking on the streets of New York and New Jersey, bringing some bagels home to his family? Tell me, let's start at the beginning. What's the first job you had ever in your whole wide life?
The first job ever would be working for my father, who sells toner printing options. And I would unwrap the plastic from the ink cartridges, and he would pay me $1 an hour. And that was when I first realized I hated working.
So $1 an hour?
$1 an hour. He believed that he was taking care of us, and that was enough. We didn't deserve any other money.
That's somewhat. I can talk to my daughters about that next time they take out the trash and ask for their allowance. And so where was that exactly?
That was in Muncie, New York. That was it's a suburb of New York City, in Rockland County. I lived there for the first 12 years of my life. Not that picture that you paint of me in Brooklyn, running around with what's that movie, Fiddler on the Roof type of outfit.
Absolutely.
Definitely not how I grew up. Although now, if you went back there, it probably does look a lot more like that.
Oh, really?
Really?
Is it? And your family Orthodox Jews? Is that correct?
Yeah, my family is Orthodox. That was a very interesting upbringing. I went through the entire Orthodox Jewish school system and upbringing, and never in a million years did I ever think I would end up in Starkville, Mississippi.
Yes, you're a large portion of the Jewish population in Starkville, Mississippi.
That is definitely accurate.
So for the viewers and listeners at home, I mean, literally, and you're in the South, you need to describe what an Orthodox Jew would look like, the traditional attire, walking around, that sort of thing.
Okay, so much of my life I walked around in a white button-down shirt, dark slacks, a jacket, and then when we would pray, we would wear a hat as well. So that's probably where you get some of that idea from.
Yes.
Although it was more of a Borsalino type hat. I don't know, more like a Michael Jackson.
There you go. See, now we're talking Michael Jackson. So
yeah.
Reaches across all cultures and divides. So obviously a pretty strict walk to faith as a youngster, right?
Yeah, very much. I can go in a lot of directions from that. But yeah, I grew up in a very sheltered community. Like I said, I went through the Jewish yeshiva system essentially until I was 22, which was I was already married for 2 years by then, living in Israel and studying like many people from my community do. for the first year or so after they get married.
There you go. And that's part of fascinating in our talks for me to learn that like own ambulances, own I don't know about fire trucks, but definitely own in certain Jewish communities, right?
So yes, there's an organization called Hatzalah, which is the Jewish ambulance service, and they're they're an amazing organization. I've used them for myself a number of times. I actually, the last time I used them, I got a really bad injury to my hand. I was converting my two-car garage into a gym, and I was removing the torsion rod for the garage door, and I moved the warning label that says "Don't touch" unless you have the right
You
tools.
don't need that.
And the L bracket ate through my hand like a circular saw, and called Hatzalah, which that in itself was an interesting. Like I saw the shock, like I knew I was in shock, like dialing 911, like I couldn't remember the numbers, and they got me they got me there to the correct hospital that was going to be able to give me almost full function of my hand again. And yeah.
So, like, the upbringing is part of it that goes towards your entrepreneurial nature and towards your work ethic and that sort of thing. What other kind of jobs were there? Jobs in the community you were required to do, or other jobs that your father had you do before you had a regular job?
Well, there was the raking leaves, so we got paid for that. That was also $1 an hour, or maybe $1 a bag. I don't remember, but it was not very motivating. Um,
And by the way, for reference point, we're talking in the 2000s, right? Is that correct? Because you're a
um,
youngster.
I would say
This was not the 1950s.
no, but it was probably around the like 1990s.
Okay,
So yeah, I mean, not that
not that
long
long ago.
ago, where like $1 would go that far.
Absolutely.
Like you weren't buying a pack of gum and a packet of cigarettes for a nickel, then
Yeah, yeah,
definitely not.
yeah. During my formative years. So, other jobs other than that, did you have any jobs when you were younger,
Yeah,
teenager?
I did. So I actually dropped out of school for the first time in eighth grade. Um, I moved out of my house when I was very young. I didn't want to live under their rules anymore. My father was very big on, live in my house, follow my rules, and eventually I had enough of that. Um, he got me fired from my first official job working in a restaurant, threatening to call child labor services on them, which
Yeah.
is kind of reasonable. I was 12.
Yeah.
Why they were willing to hire me, I don't know. It was a different kind of world then. Like people were able to do stuff like that, I guess. Um, I did a little carpentry work for about a month. That was probably my first experience with running my own business. Um, that was really frustrating. I did not enjoy that. I When I was younger, and I guess even now to some extent, I don't like not being good at something. But it was way more prevalent then, so I would get very frustrated and give up pretty quickly on things that I wasn't good at.
Not good in carpentry. For the kids watching at home, I'm just going to let you know that carpentry is for you're learning your entire life when you're doing that. So,
Well, and that's, I guess, for down here, that's just another, I know Jesus is a very big
yeah, he's
thing
one of
down
one
here.
of your best carpenters
So
that you
that's
ever put
another
out.
thing.
So,
Yeah, another thing that me and him have in common.
you put it in there. What happened after carpentry?
I worked for a electronics company. They sold things online. Um, That didn't end very well. I don't know how crazy we wanna get with, some of the stuff, I
Well, you're
guess.
already in the hands chopping off, and I'm telling jokes about Jesus, so we might as well go for it.
Yeah, so I was working there for a bunch of months, and, um, it was regular. I don't remember how much I was making, maybe it was like $10, $11 an hour, and eventually I decided I wanted more, so I started, stealing from them, and then eventually got fired for that, and they could have they could have gotten me into some really big trouble. Basically, I was selling the cameras to friends for marijuana, and they were reselling them for actual, like online and stuff for a profit. And these serial numbers are recorded, so the FBI got involved.
Oh,
Yeah, it
goodness.
was a pretty interesting
How old were you
situation.
then?
14.
So you're
I
still
was
quite young.
yeah, I
I
was
mean,
14.
I'm going to be interviewing a former member of the mafia this week, and now the same thing. Like, still enterprising. Maybe not the enterprising is the one E and ethical is the other, but you were young. Were you living on your own at this time, or?
I was living on my own. I had my own apartment. I was a pretty big nightmare because there were a lot, like in our community, there were like, and I'm sure, and I know there are in many other types of communities, people who specifically focus on uh, mentoring and helping troubled youth, and I fit the profile really to a T, except for the fact that because of the type of, I guess, trouble I would get myself into, it made it really hard for these operations to run. If like you're getting someone a job and then he steals
Yeah,
a whole lot of money or product, it makes it hard for them to trust and take more of your kids. So actually, so when I was 15, I knew I was about to get in serious trouble for all of this, and I needed a way out. So I figured, hey, you know what? Let's go to rehab. I know I have problems, and when I got dropped off there, the people that dropped me off, they said, lose our number, don't ever contact us again, because that's the type of trouble I was making for these organizations. I think now, 20 years later, 30 years later, they've gotten a bit better at how they handle some of the stuff. Um, but it's interesting, I kind of wonder, like, now that my view of the world has shifted tremendously and I recognize, how things are happening for us and not to us. And then I was definitely living in a way of everything is happening to me and I'm just a constant state of victimhood. But looking back now, I wonder what would have happened had they actually um, let me pay the price fully for the trouble I was causing. Just curious about that,
yeah.
how that would have gone.
Some tough love. So does that happen from troubled youth to now you're dealing with troubled adults or opportunistic adults? So how'd rehab go? Were you
I
there
got
with
kicked out of
adults?
there.
You got kicked out of there. You're
I,
consistent, if nothing else.
yeah, I got kicked out of there. They told me they were unequipped to deal with my issues. And they, again, so, it's funny. Like I had another opportunity again. Like I'm not living at home. I'm still a minor. I'm not 16, not even 16 yet. And they could have very easily turned me over to child services or something like that. And a one of the counselors there gave me the heads up that they were about to kick me out and told me how I can run away so that I don't have to deal with that sort of thing. And I couch surfed for quite a while after that, and some other interesting homeless situations and stories
Was
that
this
went
in New
on
York
then.
and New Jersey, or
Yeah, this was in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah.
so not real fun?
You know, I kind of, in a weird way, I had a pride in the fact that I was fending for myself. Anytime I would get involved in these organizations that were helping troubled youth, none of them knew how desperate my situation was. I remember I was living in an abandoned apartment for quite a while, and like it was used as a storage unit for furniture, and nobody knew. I didn't have a bathroom. I didn't have a shower, and nobody knew. I would go to this place like a kind of like a soup kitchen type thing
Yeah,
for kids my age, and nobody knew. Kept to myself. It wasn't until years later when people kind of found out, and they were just in shock. So I had a certain pride, with like I felt like I was independent, living the dream, no one telling me what to do, which was always important. I hated people telling me what to
yeah. Ignorance is bliss, and it's kind of
do.
even hard to understand people thinking of that like in the late '90s or whatever. Even now today, where they're like, "Oh, the kid can't even go to the grocery store on their own." Um, I guess I can't ask how do you pull yourself out of that if you weren't thinking you were down in something.
So, um, there were a lot of like I always knew that the childhood that I had, I didn't know how to interact like a successful member of society. So, I think when things really started changing consistently for the better, there was this man, his name is Avi Fishoff. He runs a program now called Twisted Parenting, and that's a really phenomenal concept. But he played me, played me so beautifully. Like he saw my resistance and my, I guess, arrogance, like as far as needing help. And he had this idea that he was going to open up a group home for kids like me, and he was going to offer them house, fully provide for them anything they wanted. Members of the community were going to come out and take them out every single night, and they would have fun. They would go to restaurants. They would just, his whole model, and it still is, has always been, it's like, you need more love in your life. And if you have enough love, it'll eventually convert to self love, and you'll just automatically shift. And he has countless success stories with this model. Um, So I told him, I'm like, that sounds like an absolute disaster. You're just going to be taken advantage of. And I got up and I walked out of this meeting. And it was the middle of winter. I was wearing a coat that someone kindly gave me. And we were outside some resource, like Jewish resource building. And he chases me down the block and he's like, Yaakov, I heard what you were saying in there. And I'd really like for you to help me make this thing successful. Can you help do this with me? And in my mind, I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, that for sure I can do."
With me, not to me, not to
Exactly,
me.
exactly. I was gonna help him run this place, and, he was still 3 months out from, opening this, what he called Home Sweet Home, sweet with 4 E's, and, so I moved into his house for 3 months, and I was so convinced that he was, like, serious, that I was gonna help him run this thing, that when he finally opened the house and I was moving and he told me I'm moving out of his house and into this home, I was shocked, and I felt so betrayed. I was like, "What it I'm running this with you. What do you mean moving in?" But yeah, he was a wise man. He's a very wise man. He tricked me perfectly because I just would have kept on couch surfing until who knows what
Well, yeah, I mean,
happened.
when you go through that situation with your upbringing, because it's like a lot of families, there's always some level of codependence. And of course, if you're an orthodox situation with a disciplinarian father, there's going to be a lot of codependence. And you go from that and somebody wanting to be independent. It's sort of along the lines a little more long term thinking of let's see how fast you can clean your room and I'll time you. You know,
So, I I think the main thing that was missing for me, and as much as this is gonna sound like this is my parents' fault, and I guess to some extent it is, um, but because of, like, I was molested when I was a child, and, like, that according to my parents, that's when things completely unraveled. Like, they didn't know what was going on. It was going on for, like, 6 months or whatever, and they did their best to help me through it, but they again, there wasn't as much information as there is now, and the resources didn't exist. And like, I got put on drugs, like, Ritalin and other things that I hated taking. And like, and that was when, and I just became more and more difficult as that was going on. But, and I guess because of how that sort of trauma affects you at such a young age, I never believed my parents loved me. So anything they did was from, I thought, like I took as they were treating me, they hated me, they were doing this, that, and the other thing to me. And when you have that, when a family or when children know beyond the shadow of a doubt that their parents have their back, their parents love them, their view of the world is much different. And I think that was really at the core of me believing the whole world was out to get me and it was just me against the world.
so you go into the home. Did you have to do work there and stuff?
So the only requirements for living there was you had to have a job, and you weren't allowed to fight, and you had to follow the curfew. Like, there was literally, like, when I say fight, I mean physical fight.
Yeah.
Like, people I was there, like we fought like brothers. Actually, yesterday or the day before was the death anniversary of one of the guys, one of the first guys that I lived there with. He died from melanoma cancer, pretty young age, a bunch of years ago. Um, so yeah, I had a job in a furniture store in the mattress in the like they were. I was specifically working with like mattresses and couches in the warehouse that they were helping prepare for shipments and deliveries and stuff like that. I hated it so much. I wanted to be a manager, a boss. I'm 16 years old with limited work experience and a very
Yeah.
bad attitude, but that's what I wanted then.
Yeah, you want to be in charge of the show. So you want to spend a good portion of your life proving that you're the boss or you're independent, right?
Yep. So I did that for probably a good amount of time. Both through I was there. I think I lived there for about 7 to 9 months. Um, uh, Another job that I had while I was there was in the restaurant business, in like a your typical Jewish takeout deli
Like I am
store.
imagining. See, you
Yeah.
told me that I was just thinking of you being little Yaakov running the streets. I'm taking a picture of you right now. But the so typical New York delicatessen or New Jersey.
Yeah. Cut some of my thumb off with a meat slicer. That was fun. Actually, it was the same hand that I did the garage door thing
Yeah.
with. I call this. I'm a lefty. This is my right hand, so I call this my practice hand. I just.
Run it through a meat grinder and slam it in car doors
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah.
So
And then I don't know how much longer after that injury I stayed. I think the next job after that was in the Diamond District. So
there you go.
I literally I'm your cliche
I know.
typical Jew. It's a
Thanks.
shame I'm not accountant
I had to do
or a
no
lawyer.
research for this whatsoever. So you were in the Diamond District?
Yeah, I worked there until I got married at 19. I was probably there for 2 years. Yeah, we were selling Invicta watches, which were just entering the market then. I think now they're pretty, or at
Yeah,
least at some point they were, or
pretty big. Yeah.
yeah, now I think they're pretty big. It's a shame. It's like another one of those opportunities where like, geez, if I only could have stuck it out or figured out how to stay there longer, who knows where I'd be right now.
You probably have the same disorder I have of being locked in a room all day long. That's been my I won't say failing point, but my exit point. In a lot of stuff is that I'm stuck in here, and then you could just tell yourself like, well, "What's wrong with here?" You're like, "But I'm in here." Like,
Yeah.
I want to be outside doing something. So,
Well, I
but
think then my main thing was I just didn't want to be here. Didn't matter where here was.
yeah.
I didn't want to be here.
So you got married. So you
I
got
got
diamond. Well, I
married.
guess engagement rings easy when you're working at a diamond store.
Yeah, I got married to I guess my childhood sweetheart, you would say. We met. She was 15. I was 16. Um, we got married at 19, and this is a year after I was fighting with some of pretty big rabbis in our community. They were saying you're too young to get married, and I was like, I'm 18. Parts of the Bible even say 18 to get married, and they convinced me to wait a year. So I waited a year, and then on the dot, it was like getting married.
So through all this, you're courting a young lady, and were you still a member of the same synagogue or
No,
with your
not at
parents?
all. They were a different
Okay.
social economic class. They were a different sect of Judaism. My parents did everything they could to try to convince me not to marry this girl. Um, and I mean, I guess you can say they were right because 14 years later we got divorced. But I have two amazing kids from that marriage, so they had to come here somehow. So my parents weren't right in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. So what happens after the Diamond District, life and career wise?
Um, I was in real estate for a bit, for quite a bit actually. Uh, Probably about 5 years in the rental agent space.
To New Jersey, and
in New York. I would.
so just like on TV, tons of money being thrown at you. It's all easy, right?
So it's funny. I still hated working. That was an ongoing theme for quite a while. So I would do the bare minimum and get really frustrated about why people weren't throwing money at me. But at the same time, like there was a month where I really needed 5 grand, and somehow that month I managed to make 7 grand, and it just proves how, we've talked about this before. Like, when you see something, you hold a vision in mind, and then you just follow through. Like, what's the next thing to do after that? Things just happen. But then again, I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I know now, or really any of the stuff that I know now. My personal development hadn't started um, officially at this point, and it was more just like, up until that point, like traditional therapy, and stuff like that. So my view of the world was still very much the same. The world is out to get me. Everything is. It's like it's my parents' fault. It's my in-laws' fault. It's my wife's fault. All these things.
And that's a pretty heavy reminder being surrounded by it because, to a large effect, the Catholics and Jewish have the same problem, which is the community and the family and stuff is a lot more involved day to day basis, constant reminders. There's not a lot of Catholic, I think, has let up over the last couple of years, as generations get away from it. But there's a lot of community guilt too, where every single person knows your business. Am I correct on that? Where
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
more, it's more than just the in laws. It's
yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, they're not small communities, but they're definitely tight knit communities, and everyone. It's hard to hide. But it's interesting because if who I was at my core was secure and running from a place of, you know, everything is happening for me.
yeah.
I live in a loving universe, friendly universe, then everything would have gone completely, just completely differently.
Well, yeah, we discussed a reticular activator. I'm shopping for a Honda Accord. I see Honda Accords everywhere. If you're
Exactly.
looking for bad news, you are going to find examples of it all the time, as opposed to when
Exactly.
you're something that's happened through your coaching. I met a couple of yesterday, and we were talking about houses and stuff, and their stress with life, they just given up on the house. And I told them, and they're like, "We don't want to look at new houses until we get rid of this one." I'm like, I said, we need to get away from your house that has broken roof and broken water and broken that. Let's only look at other houses. And they're like, I don't understand. I'm like, well, you've already told me your marriage is good and your jobs are great. But I said, y'all are in this space where everything's wrong with your house. And I said, your house isn't that bad. You'll be able to sell it. Let's go look at some other ones. Not so you buy it, just so you have some goal or some possibility so that you're looking forward to something. Because right now, if you sit there and go, I can't do this till this, well, it's never going to happen. It'll be, if you're looking for everything wrong with your house, I promise you, as some of my clients will tell you, they can move in a brand new house and realize that they should have gotten a house with an office, or their azaleas aren't blooming or whatever. Um, so yeah, I can imagine that, especially when the rigors of religion and your upbringing are everywhere, like all over the place and constant. So
Yeah, I mean, the biggest shift that happened for me was actually when I moved down here. Um, you know, One of the things I got from a mentor of mine, Dr. Joe Dispenza, was everything around you reminds you who you are. So when I moved down here, I finally got to decide how I wanted people to see me, not have to fight against the way people were already seeing me.
how on earth do you end up in Starkville, Mississippi, from most of a lifetime in New York and New Jersey?
So I had gotten divorced not that long ago, and from that point, so I've been here since 2020, 2021, and I was fulfilling on some dreams that I had, and I went to a wilderness survival instructor training program in Missouri. And when I was there, I met someone who was from Starkville, Mississippi. We became pretty close very quickly during the 45 days of the course. And not long after the course, he invited me to come down and visit. And I remember thinking, I'm like, why in the world would he want me to visit his backwards, upside down southern
Yeah.
city, southern state? And like, I believed every single cliche at that point about the South. I'm from the tri-state area. The rest of America is just to keep us from flipping into the ocean. But I was kind of curious. Let me go meet his barefoot, toothless, mobile home family community who all work at the one McDonald.
Yeah.
And I came down here, was very pleasantly surprised. It felt like home immediately. I was here for 2 weeks. I called I called my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, and told her we're moving to Starkville, Mississippi. She's like, the poorest state in America? I'm like, you're just gonna have to trust me. And 4 months later, sold my house. We moved down here, and not long after we got here, just the way we were welcomed by the community. She's originally from Kazakhstan, and most people probably heard of Kazakhstan from the movie Borat.
Yes, an
Uh,
all-time. I forget how many Academy Awards it garnered, but it was quite a haul that they got that year. So you, the Lothario that you are, you sweet talked her into dating you and living with you in New York or New Jersey.
New Jersey. By then, I
So
was
in
in
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey
See,
already.
she came from one of the poorest countries in all of Europe. You take her there, and then you move her to the poorest state in all of America,
I
which,
don't,
by the way, is still in the 1% of wealth of the entire world, but it's,
I don't
compared to
know
that.
that Kazakhstan is one of the poorest
Well,
countries.
according to the documentary Borat that I watched, it was very difficult.
Do you know that what's his name? Sacha Baron Cohen, he's
Yeah.
actually not allowed in
Yeah, you've told me
Kazakhstan
that. Yeah.
as a result of that movie.
Yeah,
They were so
that's
offended by
relatively
that
fair.
movie.
I saw they had the new Superman came out last night, and or we saw it last night, and the Superman they made up two countries because I think they were trying to be politically correct and not have like a real invasion on it. I'm like, and the names were so absurd. I'm like, this is just you could have said some real names, and then I thought like, oh well, I remember him telling me that Sacha Baron Cohen can't go to Kazakhstan. So
Actually, when I met my wife, I wasn't really looking for anything serious. I had gotten divorced not that long ago, and the thing, like literally, once this happened, I was like, "Oh darn, I'm screwed." It was literally the first time we met. She said she's from Kazakhstan, and I was like, "Oh wow, do you know Borat?" She's like, "Yeah, he's my next door neighbor."
mm,
And as soon as she said that, I'm like, "Crap, this is like I think I just fell in love with her."
yeah, she took the hit for you. Huh? So what were you doing when you moved there, and what did you do when you got here work wise?
So I had the last the last career I had in New Jersey. I was running uh, dairy restaurants, actually bagel shops. So again, more into the
Thank
cliche,
you.
fit
See, this is
right
all
into the cliche.
my notes check out. So,
Um, and
well, I
honestly,
mean, we did land in Starkville, which did have a bagel store for a little while.
yes,
So
yeah. I did not come here to continue that. I was already coaching a little bit in my time. The originally the when I started with this bagel shop, they were small chain. They had 4 locations. I think they still do. And there was a vision. They were going to sell franchises, but the owners at some point their vision shifted, and it wasn't going to turn into the job that I had hoped for, and I didn't want to stay um, stuck in a store or running these 4 stores with all these employees, just the regular restaurant stuff. The original vision was they were going to sell franchises and I was going to sell a business model and first create the model and then sell the business model. But that didn't end up happening. But that was the beginning of like really when I saw myself more as a coach or even a consultant. when I first got into coaching, I was doing a little bit of business consulting, but I didn't really enjoy the business side of things. My passion had always been working with people, helping them recognize what's possible personally in their life and how that affected the rest of their life.
Did you have a moment in your life, because we just glanced over a whole bunch of stuff where you're leading towards the whole world is wrong, everybody's against me, to I'm going to coach people to see that that's not the situation. Was there a moment like for I remember that when I started getting involved with Papa John's at a corporate level, somebody handed me the E Myth. Now it's the
Revisit?
E Myth
Yeah.
Revisited, yeah, and Good to Great. And I remember reading those, then getting audio tapes, and that was it. And luckily for me, during my more formative years of personal growth in 2008 and beyond, that's when the internet came about, and a lot of these guys started to realize like they should put out, go from 75% paid content. Tony Robbins did that. 75% paid and 20% free, to the opposite, 75% free content. And I changed my life. Do you have like a magic moment where somebody told you everything is going to be okay if you make it okay? Or
So when my first official, or when my journey into personal development really started, was my my first wife's father was into personal development to some extent, and there was a Orthodox Jewish personal development program that would rent his house to run weekend programs. And for a while, I just laughed it off, and I was like, I'm not interested in that cult garbage. And eventually, I decided to check it out, and it was pretty eye opening. But what's interesting is this type of work. I forgot what they. It's a lot of ontological type work. It's probably shouldn't have said that because I can't really define what that means.
yeah, I'm trying to think of it now, but I can. Something to do with spiders. I'm not sure.
So that was the first time I really started recognizing that I matter, I have value, I have worth, and I used it as an excuse to become a total asshole.
I can see that.
And
Yeah, I can see that.
and that actually sped up me hitting a bottom. Um, that was I became a self-entitled prick. Um, Started treating my wife a lot worse because if she didn't do what I wanted or didn't act how I wanted, now I know I matter. So I have a right
Yeah,
to,
look out.
yeah, like I'm gonna get what I want because I matter. So that ended up with another bout in rehab. Um, I'm already in my late 20s. Uh, we were separated for quite a while. We got back together. Um, and And I but by this time, after the rehab, like, I finally really started taking life seriously. I recognized that by then I was working a 12-step program, and the focus of there is spirituality. Addiction is a spiritual disease, and there's a spiritual solution. So I started changing significantly, started becoming more people-centric, but it was more there was still something significant that was missing. Like I didn't have the language that I have now, and I didn't have a lot of tools that I have now. Um, and that from there led me to another um, self development program called Landmark Worldwide, and that was also pretty transformative. So I've already swallowed the personal development pill. I'm very much into it. Not getting the results that people are around me are getting, but I'm seeing myself differently. I'm getting different results, things that I never thought possible, including owning a home, um, you know, running restaurants, like things that were literally never happening for me, just were happening. So I'm seeing the value in personal development. I'm seeing the value in changing my view of the world, but again, I still don't have this sort of language. I'm just recognizing, hey, there's something called possibility. Why does my future continue looking like my past? Why, If the future is this open possibility thing, why does the past keep looking the same? And so just getting clarity in that started having some significant shifts. But underlying it all, I still have a lot of beliefs about myself that really didn't start shifting until I got into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. Um, that really started shifting, and that's when I really started understanding and really getting how much our thoughts and our feelings really shape everything. And then when I got into the work of Peter Sage, and he talks about, Albert Einstein said, and it may or not actually be Albert Einstein, but he says the most important question facing humanity is, do you live in a friendly universe? And that was the light bulb for me. And I realized it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, holy cow, you know, yeah, I've always lived in a hostile universe, and the world proved itself. Now here's an interesting story that really highlights it, because eventually what I learned is there's always what to focus on. You can focus on good and you can focus on bad. Both options always exist. But if you live in a hostile universe, you're going to focus on the negative. Your nervous system, your unconscious, your subconscious, its job is to protect you from worry, fear, shame, doubt, anger, all the negative feelings. It's going to do everything that it can to protect you from that. So you're going to do everything you can to not to deal with a hostile universe. But as long as that's your viewpoint, as long as that's your starting point, and we wake up every day thinking about that, like, do I live in a hostile universe or do I live in a friendly universe? That's a choice we make every single day, whether we're aware of it or not. And I realized, holy cow, I'm making that choice. So here's a story that really illustrates that point. Um, I was I was driving for Uber to supplement. Like I was coaching by then already, but it wasn't enough. So I was driving for Uber. I had a whole system figured out. I was making pretty good money, um, and I get a call late one night. I think it was Saturday night from an Uber representative telling me that someone was using my account or something, and I don't know. Basically, long story short, I fell for a scam, gave him access to everything that I made, which was like $1,500, and he just wiped me out. And I had already had a lot of these tools, and my view of the world had shifted already. And the old me would have instantly gone into like, oh my
Here
gosh,
we go again.
here we go again. World's out to get me. But I knew that that wasn't true. I knew the world wasn't out to get me, and I knew everything was happening for me. And even this, I was like, somehow this is happening for me. And I remember driving back home. I had ended up pretty far, and it's quite a long drive back, and I was just hyping myself up. There were those nagging thoughts, like, "Oh, how can you fall for that?" And I was just having a conversation with myself. It's like, "No, this is somehow an opportunity. This is somehow an opportunity." And I convinced myself. I like really, really stuck with that. And I got home, told my wife that I just got scammed, but somehow it's an opportunity. And I'm telling you, in the past, this would have been a spiral of who knows what, like depression, just literally. Like I just got seriously taken advantage of. And the next day, I was talking to a friend of mine, um, just telling him what happened and how somehow it's an opportunity. And he was so inspired by the way that I was sharing this thing. He hired me on the spot to be his coach. And it was actually my first big client. So, and then like a few days later, I find out that Uber had insurance for this and I got all that money back. So it was like literally like this easily could have turned into who knows what, like a serious disaster, sending me on a major spiral. And instead, it turned into a significant profit. I changed my model of how I coach, changed a bit, how I offer my packages, and how long I work with people. So, all of that to say is there was proof. There was proof the world is out to get me. There was proof that there are people taking advantage. And if I'm not careful, I'm just going to be completely shafted. But I was insistent on not focusing on that. I was adamant. The world is not out to get me. I live in a friendly universe. Everything is happening for me. And it turned into a major opportunity.
Yeah, and it's 100% of where you're sitting and where your perspective is. Like, and of course, as you get further in personal development, growth, that sort of thing, you start looking back at points in your life where you, even when you did things right, you had a good attitude about it. So, like, I had one where I went to a festival and I probably had $40 in my pocket that I normally wouldn't have just to go see this concert, and like was buying a ticket outside for $18, and I went to walk to the gate and it was a ticket from the year before. And I remember like laughing, like I was like, "Ah, that got me, man. Good, like, good for him. I should, New Orleans, like you're dealing with street people and carnies all the time." So I was like, "Yeah, he got me." And I went in, and then I had like $3 left to last the next 12 hours. But I bought a real ticket. But and it wasn't a lesson learned about the ticket. But I remember not feeling embarrassed or dumb or anything at all. And I've had the opposite situation even in recent years, where you're like, "Oh, I'm so stupid for this," and you just, if you can frame it, we'll put a link to some generic Joe Dispenza thing on the podcast thing here in the notes, because I don't. There definitely have not been 2 days that have gone by in the last year that I haven't listened to. Of course, some on repeat to a fault that my wife probably knows what they sound like through the pillow. But like this morning, where you're waking up and taking a minute not to open Twitter and get angry at the world, or things like that, to put it in perspective, or as it says on my fancy cup, to make positivity louder, which
Yeah.
that came up 8 years ago before I'd ever heard of anything about, you know, sharing with personal growth stuff. The manifesting thing's the hardest part, where people are like, oh, you're trying to do magic. And at the functional part of it, you're trying to train yourself to look for every opportunity. This podcast has been a great thing that we've discussed at, where my first list of guests was like my 5 friends, and then I mentioned it to you, and you're like, "Don't you know Lieutenant Governor?" And then other friends have said it in a kind way, like, "Hey, dummy, you're 1 degree away from so and so, and your friend on Twitter runs a talent agency," and like you start going, "Oh," whereas those things weren't created; they were there, but you're just not looking for them. And
Yeah.
once you my oldest daughter Allison does a great job of living in abundance. She didn't think she was getting into the school that she got into, and she's like, "Well, they'll either come to their senses, or I'll just recreate it myself." And he goes, "And then I'll bother them until they let me in." And then of course, like a month later, they're like, "Oh, we want you. Here we go." And you can call that manifesting, call it awareness, but she put herself in a position where like everything's fine because it's always been fine.
Yeah.
I actually just said that with my last guest, where I told him, I said, everything's been okay till right now. Even though, you and I probably slept in a car and had some other horrible situations when we were younger, everything's fine. You could go back and tell the same story you just told us at the beginning here about your life, as if they were horrible things that other people did to you. But you said, I stole from the electronics thing. I did this, I had that. And it's not even blaming your former self, but putting yourself in a position where you're in charge of the story.
Yeah. And just to solidify that point a bit more, I had one of my youngest bro. I had my two youngest brothers aren't alive anymore. Uh, one of them was killed in a car accident. He was 10 and a half. I was 18. And then my next youngest brother, obviously it's not very safe to be my younger brother. Sorry, Yossi. Still have one more younger brother left. He actually took his own life a few years ago. And I say that because we grew up in the same household that had him make that helped him get to a point where that was the reasonable decision
Yes.
to make. Um, and I could have made that choice many times. I definitely flirted with suicidal ideation over the years quite a lot. Um, and then, even when that happened, my biggest regret was, geez, I wish I had access to this information so much sooner, because hell, even becoming a firefighter, I mean, that was never on my radar.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't see an Orthodox Jewish Orthodox firefighter till I was 30.
Really.
Yeah.
And now you've got a calendar.
and now I have a
You
calendar.
find
Am I supposed to?
you find all 12 Jewish Orthodox firefighters in the southeast. We'll make a calendar. We'll make,
Actually, there. So in the town I grew up, there's a fully Orthodox Jewish fire house.
but no calendar. That's what I'm saying.
It's definitely a
We'll
different
stick to the
calendar.
southeast. Oh yeah, just do on one white button unbutton. I'm sorry.
No,
Back to the show, guys.
but I said that because, like, had I been able to share firefighting, like that would have been something he would have absolutely loved, and he would have, he'd probably be alive right now being a firefighter. But everything happens, I believe very firmly, everything happens for a reason. I may not understand how or why. Everything is happening for me, and somehow it needed to go exactly this way.
Oh, absolutely. Why
But
not? Well, you could be, and this could very, very easily be a prison interview about the life lessons you learned, from some misstep, and could have been the same life lessons learned, but somebody could be sitting here going, "And my dad did this," the classic line of "My dad was the dad's a raging drunk, and that's the reason I don't drink," or "My dad's a raging drunk, it's the reason I do drink."
yeah,
I was talking to Josh Gillis, the owner of Catfish Alley Studios, Mississippi's only Web 3.0 studio, earlier today. He's got 3 daughters. And I told him, I said, the quote I tell a lot of people with young kids is that in the largest study of familial relationships and success over 50 years with 50,000 people from England and the United States, the number one predictor of success for your children by 15-fold was they spend time reading and talking to their children from the birth to the age of 9. That's it. Like, not how much money you had, not how any other horrible things. Like, and so to be a loving father that's it. It's my vocation. I know it's your vocation, not your job, but like what you're calling to do that is to love on your family. And
yeah,
it affects my priority structure. Like, I really want to be in the musical this fall, but I've got my daughter going to school. I'm not missing dropping her off. I'm not missing that homecoming game. I may not see her again for 2 years and get tied up with work or something, but I'm going to that. But it's right under there. It's right
yeah.
under there in my personal growth stuff. And um,
And
it's
with my 2 older kids, I didn't know that.
yeah,
It's funny because, like, I knew I didn't wanna be like my father. Like, I was so clear, and I did everything in my power, that at least that was in my power, to not be like him. And the biggest light bulb in that whole situation was, there's this idea, whatever you resist persists. You can not, like, the brain doesn't understand negatives. So,
I'm
like,
not going to
I'm
eat
not
that.
going to be my father.
I'm not going to eat that donut. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember sitting with my older daughter, and she was describing to me how she was telling me how grateful for the growth that I've done and how much I've changed and all that stuff. And I was like, how did you used to see me? And she literally described the way I see my father. And it was in that moment that I realized, it was like, here I thought I was not being my father, but not being my father, not only is it not enough to not be my father, pretty much guarantees that that's who who I will become. And because of that, like the way I am with my 3-year-old Jonah, is a completely different person. Just like you were saying, the first 8, 9 years of their life are, you're laying down the foundation of who they're going to be. It's the opportunity for them to figure out who they are, what they're capable of, what they like, what they don't like, in a safe environment. If I'm constantly, what a lot of what we call parenting is really conditioning. It's like, this is how you have to be. You can't be like this. But if they don't get to test boundaries and really push the limits of who they are, then they're going to have to go out there in the world when they're 18, 19 years old, when they haven't had a chance to do that yet. And now the stakes are high. Now there are bills to pay. Now there are people potentially depending on them. And now they have to go out and figure out, who are they? What do they like? What are they capable of? So if I can allow Jonah just to be a child, and really be that space, show up for him. And that's one of the things that, being a firefighter, the way my shift works and the way my coaching works, it allows me to spend a good amount of time with him and just be with him.
Yeah, and that goes back to the your kids don't listen to you because they're too busy
Yeah.
watching what you do. You watched what your father did despite all your resistance,
Yep.
and it still came through from you, you know.
Yep.
And I didn't listen to a lot of stuff my dad says, but in a lot of ways, my aunt, we went and visited my kids. We were trying to get really into our family history, which unfortunately for them, when you go back to the Cajun part of it in the late 1800s, looks like a vine wrapping around a family tree. It's a little, there's some sketchy stuff going on there, folks. Sorry to my cousins in Louisiana. But nevertheless, they were telling stories about my dad, uh, who wouldn't give money to politicians, who loved throwing parties, who liked being in the news, who volunteered stuff for the news, who promoted other businesses with no like just oh, of course. And I don't can't remember examples of it till they brought that up. They're like, "Oh, y'all used to have parties all the time. You used to do fundraisers." And most of my vision of my father was from me from 13 to 19. Like, oh, he had to work all the time. He was sick, that sort of thing. The lessons you learn from that, and the same thing we've shared a lot of stories about my kids where I'm like, I didn't tell them to do that, they know to do it. So
Yeah. No, and to your point, one of the reasons why I always hated work so much was I always looked at my parents who worked very hard. You know, I, I just never saw them being happy. I never saw them content. They always were worn out from work, upset about this, that, and the other thing. And it was like, for what? Like, you don't even have what you want. So why should I break my balls, working so hard and not even get to enjoy it or be happy? It's like, that whole I work just in order to be able to live, like that wasn't going to be my life.
well, I've had a benefit in my own life of my kids being able to see some of it on social media. They usually hear more from other people, but my Katie, my middle daughter, said once where Desiree asked her, like, what do you think your dad does all day? And she started singing this was 4 years ago, the little Lego movie song. Everything is awesome. Everything is great when you're part of a team. Like that's what they imagine. That's how glorious that is that I'm not coming home and kicking the dog. Although Gumbo the dog, sometimes I want to kick you. That I'm coming home and it's not, too stressful or me just screaming or crying or whatever like that. I think anytime I give them a stern look, it works because they're not used to the stern look. So you get some daddy power there. So all right, so you end up in Starkville, Mississippi. What's the first gig there? Is it just coaching?
Yeah, it was just coaching. I had this idea and vision that I was just going to be such a powerful coach, transforming so many lives. People were just going to be lining up at my door, begging for to work with me
In
um,
Starkville, Mississippi.
in Starkville,
Limiting
Mississippi.
belief. Let's not throw that out there. So there's plenty
And
of people here who are successful, and I've had several members. Amy Bogue's podcast is coming out today. That's half of our discussion was personal growth and how to frame things.
yeah, and I yeah, I wasn't able to convince people how awesome coaching was at first. Um, so I mean, I did Uber for a bit. I did some door dashing for a bit, and always, thank God, was able to make ends meet. And it's interesting because had I not had the tools that I've had these last bunch of years, like it would have been a disaster. But I I have a vision of how I show up in the world, the difference that I make for people. Um, I believe that we were never taught how to operate the human being, and we believe simply because we're not dead, we're doing it right. But that's a very and to some extent we are, but we're surviving, and the basic, the lowest level a human being can operate on is survival mode. Like we're designed to not die.
Yeah.
So, but that's not enough. And I don't remember where I was going with that point.
Yeah, you're saying you use the tools to help you get through the last few years.
Yeah. So I have a vision, and yeah, I think when we learn how to operate the human being, when we understand the role that our thoughts and our feelings actually play, when we understand the nervous system, and we start actually being able to affect our nervous system, we start showing up differently. Things that used to stress us don't stress us. In our work together, the food we put in our body will affect our thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. I'd like to share my biggest breakthrough. So I think we're a couple years into it. And if you think anything of me or my growth or differences in the last 2 years, that's probably why you need to give my guest Yaakov a call. My biggest breakthrough through coaching, which it took us a while of stumbling to get to it, but I would wake up like a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm doing real estate, I'm flipping houses, I got rental houses going on, and I would wake up at 3 in the morning inevitably, and my head was hot, and that means there's stress. And so that stress needs something to cling on to. So that stress had to be financial. It had to be like, oh, these guys haven't finished my kitchen counters, or they haven't finished my kitchen counters, or they haven't done this, or they haven't done this. And then that leads into, oh my God, this deal at work's about to fall apart, blah, blah, blah. And through the simplest form of extensive coaching and just literally discussing it for hours, the biggest correlation I realized was that I was eating Rocky Road or drinking a bourbon and Coke after 8 o'clock at night. And when you wake up with that stress and your blood sugar's high, especially men, don't know how to define it other than something must be wrong. It's sort of along the lines of some psychologists say we have too many tigers coming at us, that we're cavemen, and a tiger comes at us, and that tiger is the utility bill and all that sort of stuff. We're really defining too many things as tigers, and we don't realize the physical stresses that if you aren't eating correctly, aren't, I've taken magnesium and my sleep is completely amazing now. And when I do wake up at 3 in the morning, I know like, oh, I had the peanut M&Ms while watching the Superman movie last night. And I know when I woke up at 3, and then I can drink a glass of water and meditate a little bit, listen to Joe Dispenza, and then go back to bed and get through it.
Yeah, I mean, see, one of the things about, again, knowing how to operate the human being is we are meaning making machines. It's like when I have a feeling in my body, my brain goes, wait, why am I feeling that? And we start looking around at our environment to prove why I'm feeling that way. So it's not that my world dictates how I feel. It's I have a feeling that happens instantaneously, and then I look around and I try to prove it. We like to think of our brain as this, the peak of human development, and to some extent it is, but it doesn't have access to new information. It only has access to the past. So it looks around it looks around my world, and it's like, oh, this is why I must be feeling that way, and this is why I must be feeling that way. But the truth is, we have a nervous system which is extremely complex. And without getting too conspiracy theory, we live in an environment that doesn't really promote a regulated nervous system. So our nervous system, without us already doing the right thing, all the right things, is already out of whack. So we're going to have a whole bunch of feelings that our brain needs to justify. Something that I learned a while back that's really interesting, like just to prove the fact that our brain doesn't like to not know. So right where the retina hits the optic nerve, there are no photosensors in that part of the eye. So there's literally a blind spot, and there's a way that you can actually you can see the blind spot in your eye. But if you look around, there's no blind spot in your eye. And when you do this experiment, you can find, like I said, you can find it online. You literally see how the brain fills in the blank based on what it thinks should be there. So,
These walls are part of that experiment, these little slat walls where you can see things. You're just
yeah,
connecting them yourself.
yeah. So, knowing that though allows me to use that to my advantage. If my brain is going to be filling in the blanks, why don't I take some responsibility for what those blanks are so that my brain actually fills in what I want it to see? And that's why, having a foundation of living in a loving universe, everything is happening for me. it completely transforms the life that we have without anything else changing. The opportunities are right there in front of you. But if you see things the way you've always seen them, you're going to continue seeing them that way.
Yeah, and of course, as many development people says, personal psychologists, everybody else, more than 90% of the time, almost 100% of the time, your brain cannot tell the difference between something that happened in reality and that's something that we're creating in our brain. And if you don't believe me, think about your mother-in-law. Like, think of if that's a pain point for you, or think about a time you've made a mistake with a loved one or something and betrayed them. And you can get hot in the head. You can make yourself sick. And if you don't think that that can happen all the time, you're incorrect. Like, it's just, it's there. And, the more you do meditation, the more you pay attention when you're dreaming, you understand not how much control you have on it, but how physically that can make you feel.
Yeah, I mean, another example for that is just close your eyes and picture your favorite food. Like really picture it and feel your mouth, feel yourself start salivating. There's no food there. That's the beginning of the digestion process.
Yeah.
But like you said, the brain cannot tell the difference between real and imagined.
Yeah, and if you sit there and think about the realtor who betrayed you, or the bad person at work, or at any group you're in, or any guy that cut you off in traffic. My kids love now that I say namaste when somebody cuts me in traffic. I'm like, namaste. So I'm going to stay on your bumper and ride you into traffic. But thanks for the time. That's what you taught me. Thanks for giving me more time in this roundabout. I'm glad that you stopped, lady with Alabama license tag. Thank you for more time today. So, um, that's a big growth point for me. Has been to look at that perspective and go, this is just how it is. It's just happening. And I think the most recent studies have shown that 30, 40, 50% of the memories we have never even happened.
Yeah, our memory is 1000% inaccurate. I mean, it's just our brain fills in that's why stories, the more time you tell them, get more and more interesting and exciting. It's like it's a mixture of exaggeration and just um, embellishment.
Yeah. And sometimes it's who you're telling the story to, whether
Yeah,
you don't realize. Sometimes you realize it, like you're in the middle of it, and you're like, oh, I'm going a little crazy. But yeah,
and
that's what I tell people. Yeah, you say, this the truth. It's the first time I've told it. So
yeah, and but that's why things as little as not watching the news is so important because there's the news is never like how amazing this world is. It's usually
yeah.
how horrible everything is, and if you're constantly watching and listening to all that sort of stuff, yeah, it's a dangerous world out
Well,
there.
Twitter, especially now, or X, they had, I saw it on X, which was interesting, but there's a YouTube clip of videos and it was talking about the advertising that's on there that in the morning and the evening, especially late at night, Twitter next gets it's a rough spot to be if you're other than sports, but it is not, you're usually not seeing the fuzzy video there. You're seeing somebody get killed or something like that. Their advertising now targets that. So their advertising is a lot of the items aren't for sale. So people notice now that I say this, which is the reticular activator, they'll notice that Instagram and TikTok and Facebook Instagram and TikTok are more about selling. They'll sell you the items that are there or for something for you to purchase. On Facebook, since there's a lot of memory and life stuff, there's a lot of insurance and life products. And Twitter is a lot of fixing things. So it has Drano and all these other items that are like, you have a problem, this will fix it. And it's because of the content that's on there, is because you're literally getting grumpy watching this stuff. My Facebook feed is generally beautiful because I only post beautiful things. And if somebody's too negative, I just snooze them for a little while. So I don't, there's sometimes I miss some stuff. I was a little late to the Ozzy Osbourne dying thing because I was watching cute, not puppy videos, but just my Facebook now is looking for happy stuff because I'm always looking for happy stuff.
Yeah.
So, how do you get into the firefighting business? How long have you been involved in the trade?
Um, about a year. About a year. It's actually an interesting story how I'm even in the firefighting industry. And again, it's just another example about how things are happening for me and not to me. So when I first moved down here, I originally tried to join the volunteer fire department. I figured, I'm not from the community, but I can if I get involved, this will be a good way to get involved in the community, and a way to start meeting people, getting to know people, and by a series of miscommunications, I was told there's no volunteer fire department.
Yeah, that's 100% perspective because, like, if you're a negative person and you get turned down for a volunteer job, like, it's a,
So,
life lesson.
well, at that point, it wasn't. It was more just. It was just a way. Like it was just a way of getting into the community. I found BNI not long after that, um, and
BNI is Business Networking International, which is how Yaakov and I met. There's two chapters in Columbus, one or two in West Point and two in Starkville now. So
one in West Point, two in
two
Starkville.
in Starkville. So it's an intentional place to go get business. I've mentioned it on like three or four of our podcasts, but it's a place to network. Like you go to the chamber event and you network, and you might make friends, and you might kind of sort of network. But when you go to BNI, like you're there to network and to find people to help develop your business and
Yeah, and
hopefully
the
develop.
way the way BNI is set up, there aren't in your chapter. There's no other realtor. In the chapter I was in, there's no other life coach. So you're really there learning to focus on helping other people grow their business, and those same other people are focusing specifically on your business. And things like um, uh, chamber of commerce. You have many types of the same industry, and you're kind of
Yeah,
competing there.
we'll go back to firefighting or volunteer firefighting.
So, I mean, I gave up on that fairly quickly, and one of my good friends here, who's also Jewish. I'm not going to say his name because he may be undercover. Um, he was in the he was in the fire department for a little bit, and well, obviously, when once he left, they needed their token Jew. So
Yeah, for the
it's
calendar, exactly.
it's time for me to start figuring out how to get in, and I I tried out. I was there were 5 other people who applied with me, and I was the only one that got through um, the entire process. They interviewed me that day, and I started following up with them when I didn't hear back from them right away. And I just kept being told my application was pending, and everyone that I knew that had any sort of connections, would have them reach out, and I just kept hearing, "Oh, your application is pending. Your application is pending." And after about a year, I gave up. So uh, one day I was, Jonah's getting older. I guess he was around 2 at the time, and, fire trucks are interesting. He wanted to go see the fire department, so we went during the day, and, he's a cute little boy, so, the administrative assistant, she saw him, she was fussing over him, and she brought the chief out to introduce himself, and as soon as he heard my name, he was like, "You've applied here before, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was 2 years ago, and I'm still waiting for a call back." And then just a couple days later, I get a call from Human Resources saying, "We don't know what happened with your application. We're so sorry, but if you're still interested, we'd love for you to apply." And the part that was for me was by this time, the fire department switched from a 24 hours on, 48 hours off time to 48 hours on, 96 hours off, which was perfect because it allowed me to seriously focus on coaching, which is, you know, very important to me and what I want to be able to focus on. And I don't know that I would have been able to do it in just 48 hours off because there are some shifts where I get off and it's just like I need I I need a break.
Yeah, it's actual work. It's work is what I call it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of training. We don't get to fight that many fires here, fortunately, unfortunately, because the city does such a good job with making sure building code is up to par and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, which is good. I mean, it means people are safe. Where we train to be able to be there for people on the worst days of their life and to be able to help them get through it, save their stuff as much as possible, and save lives. And it, it's funny. I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but when I first started, it was like, I mean, and I still believe this. It's like I can't believe they're paying me to do this. I've actually paid to do things
Yeah, like
like
you get to
this.
work out and stuff, and
Yes. Yeah.
it's not a bad gig, as the kids
Yeah.
say.
No, there's a lot. I mean, like I said before, I think my brother, if this is something that he would have really enjoyed. But there's just so many aspects about it. There's one of the requirements to work in Starkville is to be an EMT. And when I was younger, I had a dream of becoming a nurse before male nurses were a big popular thing. But because of my history with school, that was a limiting belief. I was
Was
never
that
going to get
inspired
through.
by the Meet the Fockers movie with Ben Stiller? Because he was a,
Another
a
a
Jewish
Jew.
male nurse. You're the one saying it. I'm just doing it. That's the only example I have. But
No, my mother's a nurse. My sister's a nurse. Like, just the idea of helping people has always been something I've been passionate about, and this is just another way that I get to do that as a firefighter.
oh, excellent. All right. Well, let's get into the plug away part. So let's talk about the consulting and life. I say life coach. So some people get pushed back when I say life coach. They look at me a little funny, and then I say, "Well, you're looking at me funny," but I said, "I know you think a certain way about my success or perceived energy. So there must be something to it." So
So, I mean, just talking about coaching in general has always been something that it's difficult because it's simply a tool. Like, you don't hire a carpenter based on the tool that he uses. So coaching is really just a tool. But I think it's made a difference in my life. I have coaches, um, and I think what makes coaching so powerful is it allows us to see things that are usually right in front of us that make all the difference. That with someone who's able to listen to us deeply and see us for as a possibility, what's possible, and see the dream, see a dream, help you get in touch with the fact that there even is a dream, and, help guide you to a place of, hey, this is a world, this is a loving, friendly universe where things are happening for me. Um, just so many more things become possible. And like I said before, we don't we're not taught how to operate the human being, and there are so many things that we can do that allow us to really get the most out of our lives. We all just want to be happy. Like, we all want to, well, some of us more than others, but we want to enjoy our lives. We want to have fun. We want to feel connected. We don't want to just survive. We when we die, or when we're dying on our deathbed, we want to be able to look back at our lives and be like, that was amazing. I'm so grateful that I had this opportunity and the difference that I got to make. And unfortunately, many of us don't experience life that way. It's really just a matter of, well, I have kids to raise, I have responsibilities, I'm a spouse, um, and I just got to get through it. That's that's not that's not living. That's surviving. Like, why? Let's thrive. Just like, I believe we're created in God's image, and I don't think that's just a line. I think that's who we are to some extent. There's a piece of God in us. Like, we're not meant for mediocrity. We're meant to have spectacular lives. And if you're not living a spectacular life, if you believe that you're meant for so much more, then yeah, those dreams are not there to tease you. Those dreams are meant to inspire you. And we operate so much better when we live with hope, when we live with possibility, as opposed to just trying to not make the same mistakes that we did yesterday. And actually, something I would like to do with all of you, if that's okay, there's a tool that I use regularly and that I do with my clients. Sometimes I even start our sessions with that, and it's just something as simple as your breath, how that can cause an instant shift in whatever you're experiencing. It's called the heart breath. So if we can just walk through that real quick, and let's just do
absolutely.
that live. It literally only takes a minute, which is another thing that makes it so powerful. It's not about sitting for 20 minutes and meditating. It's a shift you can experience right now. So put your hand on your stomach and you're going to breathe into your belly. You'll feel your breath expand. And when you exhale, you'll feel your belly contract. You're just going to take 3 breaths like that. Now, the next breath, you're going to breathe into your belly. And at the top, you're going to hold it and just see if you can notice 5 heartbeats. Exhale, feel your belly contract. You're going to inhale again, feel your belly expand. And at the top, you're going to see if you can notice 10 heartbeats. Inhale again, feel your belly expand. Hold it at the top. See if you can notice 15 heartbeats. Inhale again, feel your belly expand. Hold it at the top. See if you can notice 20 heartbeats. You can just relax and just see what you notice is different. Like, I immediately feel a sense of like just being grounded. My thoughts are still. There's a like my vision even gets a little bit brighter. If that may sound strange, but the reason why it works and the reason why it's so powerful is, for one, you can't listen and notice your heart if you're thinking thoughts. So immediately you start you shut down the chatter. But then there's also the holding of your breath. What it does is it triggers the parasympathetic system, and it gives your nervous system an opportunity to reset itself. You're you're leaving fight or flight, and you're going into rest and digest, which is a very important baseline to be able to think clearly. You know, people, you may not realize this, but when you're in fight or flight, just the whole chemical process going on in your body is you're not thinking as clearly as you can. The non-essential systems start powering down. There's less oxygen going to your prefrontal cortex. That's your critical thinking center. That's the part of your brain that allows you to think logically and clearly. So when you're stressed and you need it most, if you're not able to get out of um, if you're not able to get out of fight or flight, you literally lose access to the part of your brain that allows you to think clearly and make decisions properly.
That goes right into the tigers are coming for you. Now you're not going to take a heart breath if you're a caveman and a tiger's coming for you, but
Yeah.
we've replaced the tigers with financial stress or family stress or love or whatever else, and we can stop the tiger from coming from you by taking a little minute just to reset yourself. It's helped me a lot in stressful situations, even in good stressful situations where your body's getting your adrenaline ready to maybe sing to your wife or do something exciting in real estate, uh, or go on a podcast. It's helped a lot. How are they going to reach you as a coach? They don't need to call you as a firefighter, but just call 911. Don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. How can they reach you for coaching?
The easiest way to reach me is through email, Yaakov at coachyaakov.com. That's Yaakov at coachyaakov.com. You can find me on social media, Coach Yaakov. Um, yeah, I'd love to connect with you, um, see how can make a difference in your life. And hey, if you just want to find out more about coaching, just to see what the fuss is all about, I'd love to connect with you and see if it's something that's for you.
Well, if y'all need an endorsement or edification of it, please let me know. It's been a game changer for me, absolute game changer in my business and my personal life and career, and for my children. It affects other people. I had talked earlier about how it affected a real estate transaction yesterday. I can see it on how my daughters walk and talk every day. And it's just been an amazing relationship the last couple of years. So thanks for coming on the show. Any final words?
Um, yes, I think, like I said before, I think just coming from a place of knowing that we matter, knowing that we make a difference, knowing that we are loved is just, it makes all the difference. And these are not just cliche words, like really getting this as a core. You know, you can look around the world and it's odd, like things. Yes, you can say everything is a coincidence, but if you're really being honest with yourself, and the science even backs this up, if you don't want to go the spiritual route, like this is there's a creator. Call him God, don't call him God, doesn't matter. There's nothing that happens by accident. Everything is meticulously designed. And if that's true, it means you're here. You know, think about it. You're 1 in 400 million sperm cells. That's how you got here. And you only got here through the combination of your mother and your father, and whatever it took to bring those two together. And they're also 1 in 400 million. You are not here by accident. You are here by definition because you matter. You are here by definition because you make a difference. And I think that's just such an important place to get very, very deeply. I matter. I make a difference, and I'm loved. Like
You
that,
are.
it's not debate. It's not up for debate. You know, like a lot of us think that our self worth is dependent on what I do, what I don't do, my success, my lack of success. It's not. Your self worth is a given. That's why you're here.
Amen. Well, this is a business podcast, and you're only as successful and happy and at peace as your five best friends. And I picked the best friends. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Colin. It's been a pleasure.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.